Welcome, everyone, to Workforce Wednesday, Serving Corrections and Justice-Involved Individuals under WIOA. Today, our presenter is Veronica Moore, and she's a program specialist with TWC AEL. So I want to welcome our presenter at this time. Welcome, Veronica Moore. Veronica is a program specialist with TWC AEL. She's been working with adult education programs around the state of Texas for 5 years. She's a graduate of the University of North Texas with an extensive background in criminal justice. She has over 20 plus years of experience administratively providing services, collaborating resources, training, and promoting reentry initiatives for the justice-involved individuals. So welcome, Veronica. And at this time, I want to turn the presentation over to Veronica. Veronica, take it away.
Good afternoon and happy Wednesday to the field and everyone that is joining us today. Today we'll be talking about serving corrections and justice-involved individuals under WIOA. Our objectives for this session will be covering WIOA Title II, allowable activities under corrections, services and corrections for adult education, adult education and corrections, juvenile education and corrections, and tying prison and jail education to reentry service. Under WIOA Title II, Section 463.3A and 463.6B explains allowable activities underneath the corrections education. The new list includes 8 categories of academic programs. Those include adult education and literacy activities, special education as determined by the eligible agency, secondary school credit, integrated education and training. Those that are marked with an asterisk are actually new allowable activities. When we're talking about adult education and literacy activities, those are your ABE, ASC, all of your classes underneath adult education and literacy. Special education and as determined by eligible provider, that's something that our programs haven't gotten involved in, but we are wanting to expand in the future. And your secondary credit are those credits for secondary high school diplomas, which our AEL program doesn't have. The only one in Texas that has that at this time would be like your Goodwill program. Then we have your integrated education and training. These are the IETs that are also activities underneath the AEL grant. Number 5, we have career pathways. These are linking individuals to career pathways in technical training. Then we have concurrent enrollment, meaning enrolled in multiple services at the same time. Peer tutoring has been included as well, which requires a more strategic plan for agencies or individual programs that are operating that peer tutoring network. Then there's transitions to reentry corrections initiatives and other post-release services with the goal to reduce recidivism. And this is something that we have included within the last couple of years, and we've expanded on and provided additional funding for under intensive services under our AEL grant. Allowable activities and how to serve. These are the 8 allowable activities that we talked about. The funding is described under subsection A, and it must be used for the cost of education programs for criminal offenders in correctional institutions and other institutionalized individuals. Again, these are including your adult education and literacy activities, special education activities, secondary school credit, integrated education and training, your career pathways, your concurrent enrollment, and your peer tutoring. And all of the ones that are highlighted in blue are the ones that AEL is actively engaged with each of our providers. The 8th one is the transitions to reentry initiatives and other post-release services with the goal of reducing recidivism. And this may include educational counseling, casework, support for incarcerated individuals as they're transitioning from one institution to another, or community placement and post-release services. assisting them in developing post-release plans or collaborating with other agencies that help in that area. Also assisting in identifying and applying for post-release services. And we'll talk about what those post-release services may look like later on. Also performing direct outreach. When we're talking about direct outreach, we're talking about the soft hand now, not just saying you should go to the Workforce Solutions office in Tarrant County, but giving specifics, like you should go to the Workforce Solutions office in Tarrant County and speak to Christina Mason, and then we're making the contact from AEL provider to the community as well. And no priority uses for these funds are for those individuals who are likely to return back into the community within 5 years of receiving the services. So the priority usage of these funds have to be given when you're serving in institutions to individuals that are more likely to return into the community within 5 years. Let's talk about AEL activities underneath corrections. There are 4 activities that we currently have under corrections for AEL. That is your AEL basic corrections, your transitions corrections, your IET corrections, and your reentry corrections, which is an intensive services. And each of these services fall under what we call tier. And so we have 3 tiers that we established about 3 years ago. Under your Tier 1 basic AEL will fall under your basic corrections and your transitions corrections. Again, each of these is tied to a cost per. So as you go up the tiers, there's additional funding for that service for each individual in that tier. So your Tier 2 intensive AEL, which includes your reentry corrections, and there's a number of programs within AEL that are participating in reentry corrections as well. In your Tier 3, which is your IET, and believe it or not, there are integrated education and training, and that's what we say IET is, the integrated education and training, also in corrections. And we have a number of AEL providers that are participating in IET corrections, meaning they're working with individuals that are incarcerated in facilities that are getting technical training, as well as providing all of the AEL services that are required underneath the IET. I am going to stop there to see if there's any questions at this time.
So Veronica's covered a lot of information. Do we have any questions at this time? I know we're going to give you an opportunity to type. Okay, we have a question. Are the people in drug centers counted?
Yes, those individuals that are in drug and treatment facilities are also counted underneath reentry or your corrections. So it depends on what services are being provided as well. So if you are working with an institution, maybe a halfway house or a treatment facility, those individuals can also be counted if you're providing ABE, ASC, or reentry services to those individuals.
Okay, we do have another question. How far back in a person's history does justice involved count? Is it up to 3 years?
That is something that we are working on providing further guidance on. We also look at the recidivism rate. So right now we're looking at the recidivism rate and defining what that shortly after release is that we'll talk about a little later on. But yeah, normally it's about 3 years, but we'll provide further guidance for those that are community-based. But if you're institutional, it's within 5 years.
Okay,
so
and we have, go ahead.
In any institution, prison, or halfway house or treatment facility, it is within the 5-year term.
Okay, and then Donnie says, what IETs are being provided? Do we have examples, I guess?
We have several in Lee College is doing several in, I believe, welding. There's truck driving, CDL. There's some horticulture going on. I know Dallas DCCB has a IETs with the federal prison that they're doing. Some logistics, I believe. There's some other things going on as well.
Okay, and then can you clarify about probationers qualifying?
So if those individuals have been released or recently released from or on probation, what we're looking to define is that time frame. A lot of times you'll get individuals that are on probation or parole for an extensive amount of time. What we're looking to do is define the community-based services that we can provide for those justice-involved individuals. So we're looking at providing more guidance on that 3-year time frame because that's how TDCJ looks at recidivism.
Okay, and then one more, we'll continue. Any incarcerated individuals can participate in all 3 tiers?
Yes, if they're qualified for those services, yes, they may participate in reentry, they may participate in basic AEL, and they may participate in IET. Again, they can participate in each of those, but you're only going to get some of our services. You'll get like a 2-for-1. Like if they're a participant in IET, you'll get credit for the IET and you'll get credit for the regular enrollment. As far as intensive services, you're actually, if they're participating in an intensive service, because it's based on the coding, and each one of those are coded differently, the intensive service and the IET services, you're only going to get credit for one or the other, because those are Tier 1 and Tier 2 services, but they will get also included in your basic enrollment. For example, Veronica is a justice-involved individual. She's in an IET, Lee College in Huntsville. I'm participating in a CDL program. I'll get credit for an IET target, and then I'll also get credit as an enrollment total.
Very good, thank you. And then someone asked about showing the tiers again, but I placed them in the chat pod. So thank you very much, everybody. Great questions. Keep them coming. Veronica, take it away.
Thank you. Next is the exit measures and exclusionary rules. So all justice-involved individuals coded with corrections or served with AEL funds will be counted in exit-based measures unless there's an exclusionary reason applied for the individual. I know before others were under the impression that if they're coded with corrections, they automatically get removed from exit-based measures, and I'll discuss what those exit-based measures are in a few minutes. But you have to actually go into the participant profile and enter the exclusionary reason for those individuals, and I'll go over what those are. Also note that all AEL participants, including corrections participants, are required to have a measurable skills gain or an MSG per program year and a workforce MSG if they are in an IET. So please review the requirements, and these requirements are in AEL letter 0118 change 1. Exit-based measures. So those measures that I'm talking about are your credential obtainment, your enrolled employed second quarter, and your enrolled employed third quarter. Exclusionary reasons. All justice-involved individuals coded with corrections and served with AEL funds will be counted as exit-based measures unless, and we want to reiterate this, unless an exclusionary reason has been applied for that individual. And so in order to add this exclusionary reason, you will have to go into Teams, or your data entry person will go into Teams and enter that exclusion. So what are exclusionary reasons? These are if an individual or participant that is justice involved or others is unable to come to class, participate, or is going to exit due to the following. He or she becomes incarcerated, meaning I came in as a regular participant and some time within my period of participation I became incarcerated. Then you can enter an exclusionary reason for that individual, or the facility providing 24-hour support, such as treatment facilities, such as a hospital or treatment center, during the course of receiving these services. So anytime I go into a institution or a treatment facility or a halfway house, then I can get an exclusionary rule if I was an individual that was a regular participant initially. Now, there's also medical treatment that is expected to last longer than 90 days and precludes any entry into unsubsidized employment. So meaning something that will affect me actually being able to work is another way to enter an exclusionary reason. And these will be through conversations and through interactions, maybe with your career navigators or whoever you have assigned to follow up with participants. Other exclusionary reasons, if someone is deceased, participants who are members of the National Guard or the Armed Forces and they get called to active duty, and that active duty will last at least 90 or more days. You can enter exclusionary reasons for that. They're also incarcerated at the time of entry, meaning a lot of the programs that we have that are working with your county, state jails, or your prisons or treatment facilities, those individuals are already seen as being in an institution. And as you work with them and they complete that program, maybe it's the IUT or that ASC or ABE or ESL class, and they're still incarcerated, you're able to enter an exclusionary reason for those individuals when they are working to, if they're no longer working with you guys, or maybe they completed the class or completed the training, but he or she is still incarcerated, you can enter the exclusionary reason for that as well. And then you have your foster care. Remember, these exclusions will not be applied to individuals via Teams data entry. They can be applied via, data entry. These are not automatic just because of coding. You have to go in and you have to apply these exclusionary reasons to those individuals that are still incarcerated, that become incarcerated, that are deceased, that have gone into the military, or that are in foster care, and all the other reasons for that. When is an exclusionary reason necessary? And this basically is just a chart showing, when you become institutionalized, and just an explanation, the reason and an explanation, meaning this is meant for those who are incarcerated at a program entry, EI, corrections. This is for someone who exits because they went into a correctional or justice-involved facility for 90 or more days. When it's health or medical, if the participant is in a treatment facility or medical or substance-related, that prohibits them from seeking employment. And then for deceased is self-explanatory, as well as active duty and military. And you have your current criminal offenders. A lot of times we work, the majority of our programs are already working in facilities or criminal justice institutions, whether it's county, state, or federal. This is if they, is the difference between becoming institutionalized and currently institutionalized individuals. So these are individuals where when I establish my program, I'm going into the prisons and I'm providing classes there. So those individuals are already incarcerated and you're providing services for them. You can enter an exclusionary reason once they've completed with the program or they're nearing exit. And you can look at the POP report to see when these individuals are actually going to exit or how many days since exit. A lot of times your instructors locally will also know that, or your coordinators that are supervising as well. And remember, coding does not exclude participants from exit-based measures. I just really want to reiterate that as well. Exclusionary determinations, they must be recorded in Teams prior to the 90-day exit is determined. So when you're looking at your POP report and you're doing your data analysis and your data mining, this will be a good thing to look at, especially if you're providing services to justice-involved individuals, whether they're incarcerated in a state jail, county facility, or federal facility, just to ensure that you are entering your exclusionary rules on those that is required. Now, if I am working with an individual that's inside a facility and that individual gets released before that 90-day time lapse and before that POPS lapse, then that individual has the ability to get a job or get employment as well. You can utilize a POP report, as I said, to determine the 90-day time mark. Also, the start date of the exclusionary reason, it must be later than the last service date. Okay, and so the system will not allow you to enter an exclusionary reason prior to the last service date. When you're entering contact time, if that is different from what the last service date is that you enter the exclusionary rule, teams will give you an error and say, hey, by the way, this person has an exclusionary reason applied to them. And so you have to go and adjust and figure out what's going on with that. And choose a new date range that the exclusionary reason applied. So just in case someone leaves and you know that they have gotten incarcerated, but then they come back and they're participating in your program, that's an example of where you may see that. How does it help with performance? So how does exclusionary reasons help with performance? So entering exclusionary reason in teams helps performance by excluding individuals from the following exit-based measures: your credential rate, your employed enroll second quarter, and your employed enroll third through fourth quarter. And please review AEL letter 0118, which has all of this information in there and with change 1. So it's AEL letter 0118, change 1. Again, it does not exclude individuals from measurable skills gain if they're participant. And remember, participant for AEL is individuals that have 12 or more hours. And I'll stop here. There's a lot of information I shared for any questions.
Thank you, Veronica. Now, I have placed the link to the AEL letter 0118, change 1 in the chat if you want to grab that and refer to that later. And there's a couple of questions, but they're related to foster care. So I'm going to ask you, I don't think that that's connected to correctional, but Cheryl says, does foster care for intensive services qualify? Does foster care qualify for intensive services, or do they after they leave foster care? And then Carol says, what agency is providing foster care educational aid? This area is of great interest to myself.
Underneath the exclusionary reasons, and I'll go over that for your foster care, would be a certain age range. I believe it's foster care for exclusionary reasons would be those that are 16 to 24 is the age range on that. But I don't have any specific information on who's providing those services, but we can find out for you guys and refer you. I would say you may want to look on the Department of Family and Protective Services website because they do a lot with the foster care system and circles of support as well. Any additional questions?
Okay. Well, Anne Marie says vocational rehab might know too. So I don't see any other questions coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the link to the Department of Family and Protective Services in the chat. And go ahead, Veronica.
Next, we want to talk about serving adults in corrections. And so when we're looking at serving adults in corrections, again, you can serve adults similar to and juveniles in the same manner, with the exception of the age range for the juveniles or the younger offenders. So adult education and corrections, there are over 145,000 offenders in Texas prisons, and of those, 68,371 of those offenders were provided educational services. So we're looking at almost 50%, 47% of Texas prisons, and this is prisons and not county jails or local facilities, state prisons, that have provided over 47% of educational service. On average, most have only completed 10.4 years of schooling. So you're looking at 10th grade going into the 11th grade. Those who do have a high school diploma or an HSE there is often substantial need for remediation, especially in English and math. So even those that do have diplomas or high school equivalencies, there's still need for remediation, and that's where AEL can come in and assist. There are about 64,000 Texas offenders released annually, with about 1/3 of those individuals that do not require supervision. So you may have individuals that are in your programs or that are coming into your programs, and that's where it's good to have that one-on-one conversation with individuals that are not underneath a parole supervision or probation. They've just been released from facilities. And so with that, you can still provide services to those individuals as well within a certain time frame of their release. In Texas, incarcerated first-time college students require remediation. As you guys may or may not be aware of, individuals that are incarcerated, they are also able to take community college type classes as well. And some of them may get out and take some classes, maybe it's at ACC or Lee College or other McLennan's colleges as well, and they may need remediation in certain areas to help them actually get through whatever certification or training that they're pursuing.
Now, Veronica, before you continue, we've had a question.
Okay.
And the question is, we have students in teams who get early parole and left prison more than 90 days ago. We cannot enter an exclusionary reason in teams. What can we do?
You would contact your program specialist or team technical assistants with those individuals' names and IDs, participant IDs, and we will work on that on the back end. As we were talking about adults, I also wanted to provide some information about juveniles in the Juvenile Justice Department as well, considered and called TJJD. So in TJJD, there are educational programming, and these are for individuals that are juveniles that operate in a year-round program, and normally their age ranges from 10 to 19. Of course, AEL can't serve anyone younger than 16. And if you're 16, you have to have a court order, which the majority of these individuals or all of these individuals would have a court order as well. So as they're transitioning, you may be able to work with educational programming personnel to help collaborate and link these individuals with programs in the community. You also have youth that are committed to TJJD, and they often function at a 4 times to 5 times lower than expected grade level. So this is another way where we're working to collaborate and link services. So as these individuals are transitioning out of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, and they may not be able to go into public schools or back to public schools, you may find that they're getting referred to your adult education and literacy programs throughout the state of Texas, which TJJD has done a very good job of including AEL in the youth transitional plan. So if they don't have a high school equivalency or GED, what they'll do is they'll automatically, that parole officer, case manager, transition specialist will automatically work to refer those individuals to AEL programs in the community as they're transitioning out. Also, when you're looking at TJJD programming, you also looking at, which is considered like they're determining their overall achievement in completing the rehabilitation program. So there's a lot of career opportunity, industry recognized certifications, even in the juvenile area. They may start a certification that they may need to continue as they transition into community-based programming. So that I may start a welding program and get just my basic, and then I may need assistance with completing that or following through once I have transitioned out. Also, they do have high school equivalency or GED programs. They have course credit, high school graduations, and all that locally. But again, when individuals are operating at a lower capacity, even as they're acquiring some of these things, AEL may be able to come in and assist them as far as transitioning into the community and continuing with their educational goals. You have also graduated and gotten, dual credits and all of that. So those are some educational programming within the Juvenile Justice Department. Are there any questions about TJJD or the adult?
So there is, can we use FEMA-based certifications to this, perhaps to assist with the AmeriCorps program with juveniles?
You can, any individuals that are incarcerated or through an incarcerated or treatment type program, whether it's a boot camp, and sometimes you'll have like boot camp style programs. I don't know specifically what that program is and what it entails, but if those individuals are maybe mandated or ordered by a court to participate in that, and it's seen as a justice or correctional deferred program, you may be able to utilize AEL or services in that as well. But please reach out to your, your local program in your area just to ensure that it falls underneath the AEL requirements for the grant.
Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time.
Next, we're going to talk about reentry services, tying prison and jail education. So the reentry definitions for 463.3 is reentry services and post-release services are as follows. Services provided to a formerly incarcerated individual upon or shortly after release from a correctional institution that are designed to promote successful adjustment to community and prevent recidivism. And so when we say upon release, that would be within the 5 years of release. And shortly after release, we are going to be providing additional guidance on what that shortly after release may be. We have talked about within the recidivism rate of the 3 years. But again, we will be providing more direct guidance on that as well. Reentry services, and what does these services look like? So when we're talking about reentry and post-release services, we're talking about things like your educational services, your ASC, your ABE classes. We're looking at your employment services, substance abuse treatment, housing support, mental health and physical health, and family reunifications. So these are just some examples of reentry or post-release services. This is not all inclusive. There's other things that could be mixed in there as well, but I just wanted to provide some examples of some of those services. When we're looking at reentry services, the reentry post-release services, we talked about educational services and substance abuse services, as well as treatment and housing, your mental health care, and your family reunification services. So those are just examples of post-release service. Again, it's not all inclusive. There are additional post-release services that can be provided as well. On your reentry services and funding codes under Section 225 talks about these post-release services of educational counseling and casework that supports incarcerated individuals and transitions to reentry and other post-release services, which these examples will be. We're looking at your reentry and post-release service examples. Again, this is assisting incarcerated individuals to develop post-release plans. A lot of times these are already in play as they're transitioning out. So you will continue to work with or maybe collaborate with other entities for these post-release plans and helping them develop those. Also assisting students in identifying and applying for participation in post-release programs. Maybe it's a treatment, they have to go to an AA, NA, or some type of a treatment facility. You're basically helping them find out within that area where those services are located And then you have performing direct outreach to community-based programs and providing assistance on behalf of the reentering student or individual. So you're really working with them to really do a soft handout on community-based programming as they're transitioning and giving them direct links as well. Such funds may not be used for the cost for participation in these programs. And if you go to, when you're looking at corrections and things that you cannot use for the cost AEL funds for, if you go ahead and go to 38. So what you cannot use these services for are parole and probation fees, fees for treatment classes, or fees for housing assistance. So, you know, sometimes there may be a housing application fee. You wouldn't be able to use AEL funds for that. So as we move forward and we're talking about reentry individuals, we are also looking at collaborations. And it's very important that we collaborate and connect with other agencies and other individuals, not to recreate the wheel, but be a supplement to help individuals that are transitioning be more successful. So as we collaborate, the next thing we want to do is you want to work with different individuals, and I just listed individual agencies that we often collaborate with, like the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, who has educational liaisons that you can link with that will be referring students, you know, for GED preparation or technical training or vocational training programs. And they also work with community college. And as I advised earlier, what TJJD has done is in their transitional model, they have included an AEL referral for those participants that don't have their high school diploma or their GED as they're transitioning out of the facility, as well as the ability to link them to AEL programs for those that do have their high school equivalency, but they're still testing basic skills deficient. And again, these are just a list of the local district offices in the different areas that you may want to reach out to if you have questions specific to those individuals, again, that are 16 to 19 within the Juvenile Justice Department. They are also staffed with educational reentry liaisons, and they provide career exploration, research, post-secondary education. There's also different institutions that you can collaborate with. There's one in Mart, there's another one in Giddings. So if these are within your service area, and these institutions actually provide correctional services to everyone that's just as involved as a juvenile within the state of Texas. So you can work with Gainesville or in Edinburgh, Evans, or McFadden Ranch in Roanoke as well. So if these are in your service areas, you can reach out to them for individuals that may be coming back into the community that may need assistance. And what I've included here is just a link to the Texas Juvenile Probation Directory, as well as the Texas Juvenile Justice Facilities and halfway house and parole offices. So we'll just give you more information and collaboration with those individuals and more of a direct link to those. Next, we're going to talk about the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and TDCJ and their divisions. There are different divisions in TDCJ, and what I wanted to provide is your institutional division, which is your prisons, your state prisons, and your state jail facilities. This is a link to those units. They are also have the counties that are associated with them and the regions. And so this gives you an opportunity to see. I also wanted to include just some common facility types and languages, so you'll know what those facilities actually, what they operate underneath or what their titles are. The next is your TDCJ Parole and Reentry Division. So this is another division underneath TDCJ. Your TDCJ Reintegration Division is with April Zamora. They also have a task force here in Austin that they meet at least 3 to 4 times a year to help individuals that are transitioning from institution to community-based. And they provide medical, health, like a continuity of plan and caring. They also provide reentry services and resources. They work with individuals that may need their driver's license or ID or social security cards as well. So if you're getting individuals in your programs, this is another great resource to link with. And they may have, since we can't pay for those things, they may have funding set aside for those individuals to pay for that. And then we have your parole division. So reintegration, reentry, the RID department of TDCJ and TDCJ parole are 2 different divisions. So the reentry division kind of helps individuals as they're transitioning, and parole is a basic supervision of individuals when they come out if they're assigned to parole. These are other links that you can work with, or the individuals that you can work with for justice-involved individuals that may be coming into your program. Again, I wanted to provide you with some regional directors. There's also a link on the parole, on the previous slide to these divisions with their specific names. So you'll have some initial contact and conversation with these individuals as well. And they're very helpful and open to linking services and providing and collaborating services as well. And then you have your county and state jail and probation facilities. There's a number of our programs that have operated, and a lot of them up until recently have been working with your county and probation facilities and your local jails. And that's really a good thing for you guys to do. So you want to go ahead and link with them. The difference between TDCJ and your county facilities is TDCJ tends to have Wyndham ISD as a support for educational services as well. And then your local county facilities tend to a lot of times branch out into our adult ed providers to help and assist with things. And again, some helpful resources for your reentry would be the Reentry Resource Council. They have some great research, great information about reentry centers and initiatives that are going on, as well as your reentry integration agencies and your reentry councils that have different things that are going on and different initiatives that they're starting up. Again, this is just some resources and things that we pulled information from. Just wanted you guys to provide you with the resources, TJJD, TDCJ, Office of Corrections and Education, U.S. Department of Education, Wyndham ISD, are some things. And questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you all. I want to thank you all for hanging on. And Veronica, we appreciate you continuing as if nothing. So you did great. But any questions, anyone? So while we wait for individuals to submit their questions, I do want to let you know that in July, on July 22nd, we'll have our next Workforce Wednesday webinar, and it is part 2, Serving Correctional and Justice-Involved Individuals, How to Get Started. So on this one, we'll be learning about the reentry education model, adult education statistics, and why programs should serve students in corrections, and challenges in serving this population, and things to consider when getting started, and resources and context. So join us in July. So we thank you.
And I thank you guys as well. And if you have any questions or additional concerns, you can just email me at veronica.moore@twc.state.tx.us.
Great job. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.